Hi, everybody. Welcome to our snippet on the monthly member hour log. So, if you're here, we're going to be talking through how the monthly member hour log works. So, please take a chance if you haven't already to download it from our website. Also, you can do that. And then we're going to go ahead and run through things. So, after you download the monthly member hour log and you go ahead and open it up, you should go to the Start Here tab because that's where you start. So let's talk through what you're actually doing with the monthly member hour log. So first thing, in these green boxes, you're going to fill in information. So if it's not green, you shouldn't be touching it. All those cells should be locked, and you shouldn't have to worry about them. They're just information. But in terms of things that you do need to put in, and so that the tool works properly, you need to put in your program name. In this case, we have Youth Build USA as our example. The member's last name. In this case, we have Storm Blessed. And then the member first name. In this case, we have Caledon. So that's a reference to Brandon Sanderson's work, A Stormlight Archive. So bonus points if you get that reference. Then you're going to select slot type. So this is a drop-down menu, and you can go ahead and select which one works best for you or which member you're dealing with. So that's an important note that each member should have their own individual member hour log, in case that wasn't clear. Then you're going to put in the start of service date. This is really important because it determines how the months are set up, which we'll get to in a minute. And then select the program length, which is also a drop-down menu. So at the bottom here, you'll see there are some definitions. We're not going to go into everything because we're more focused on how the tool works. So please take your time and read them. If you have any questions about what does count as AmeriCorps hours or what doesn't count, and talk to your portfolio manager and we can walk you through it. But the three main categories that this tool collects are training hours, service hours, which includes primary and secondary service, and then fundraising hours. So most programs don't use this fundraising, but it's here in case you need it. So we're going to go ahead and skip to the first month. This is primarily how you're going to be interacting with the tool is putting in information into these months. So the way it works is fairly straightforward. So this information up at the top, you see the name here, the slot type, the hour total, that's generated from the information that you inputted into here. What's also generated from that is it has the period end date and the member start date. So this is the month that the hour log is collecting. And here is when the member start date, which is what you put on the first page. So that affects, the dates. So these dates are generated based on what you put as the start date. Now, how does that actually work in terms of using the tool? So you're going to go ahead and you're going to put in hours based on when the member served. So this member started on the 15th. So we're going to go ahead and put in 4 service hours for this member, and then we're going to put in 4 training hours. So it's their first day. They spent half their time doing service, and they spent the other half of the time doing training. Now, as you'll see, this updates over on the right-hand side in terms of the totals. So it has the total hours completed, the total hours remaining based on the slot type, and what percentage that member is in terms of service versus training, because they've done 4 hours of service and 4 hours of training. They're at 50-50. And this puts them over the 20% recommended and required amount. So you'll notice this highlights yellow. So that's just to indicate that the member is over what their training hour percentage should be. And we'll talk about ways to correct that in just a minute. But just as the information it gets you. It also updates this little chart right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, even though it's not humanly possible, we're going to say they did 100 service hours on Friday, just so you guys get a better sense of how the tool works and what it looks like. So this, when you put these hours in, it loads up and it updates this, so it gives you a visual representation of kind of where the member is at. So you do that for every day that the member earns hours, and then you would print off this sheet every month and have the member and the supervisor sign. It's very important that the member and the supervisor sign off on this. If there is no signature, then it does not count. So please make sure you're doing that. But you can go ahead and print these off on a monthly basis to make sure that you're collecting them. So let's just go to the second month just to see how things carry over. Again, you'll see that this period ending updated because that's for a new month. The start date stays the same. We have these hours that carried over from the previous month, including our percentages. And so let's go ahead and, again, we're just trying to get a feel for this. So we're going to go on Thursday, and we're going to give them 50 additional training hours. Again, not humanly possible, but we're just trying to get a sense of sort of how the tool works. So you'll see that it updates the hours completed, the hours remaining, and it changes this percentage as well as updating this chart right here. That's a basic how you do it every month. Again, you're going to go out, print it off, and have the member and supervisor sign down here. So that's the basics of it in terms of what you're doing month to month. So let's talk about what happens when the member exits. So we're going to go over here to the exit helper. This is a portion of the tool which is, again, designed to help you exit your members. So we're going to walk through sort of how it works and what you can do. There's a little information on the top in terms of what it does and some instructions here. Again, same thing. Things that are highlighted in green, there's things that you should be inputting information into, and things that are not highlighted green, you shouldn't touch. So let's look at where Calvin Stormbless is right now. So he's got 104 service hours and 54 training hours. I'm going to go put in my name right here and my title. And we're going to say this happens 8/15/2020. So we have transported to the future now. Just to go ahead and do this, I'm going to go select the award type. So there's two options, partial and full award. So this member has actually not completed all their hours, so I'm going to select partial award so we can see how that works. You can also select if it's an unsuccessful exit information here. So we're going to say that Calvin Stormblast is a successful exit. He is exiting for personal and compelling reasons. He took an arrow to the knee, and so he is no longer able to serve at the program, but we're going to go ahead and exit him and give him partial credit. So things that you see down here is it gives you a percentage check for the 20% training, right? So right now the service percentage is 66, the training percentage is 34, so that's over 20%. And then it gives you what's called max available training hours. So these are the maximum training hours that your members should be counting based on the hours that they've served. So if you put 26 hours in, then this member would actually be at 20% as opposed to 34%. So let's go ahead and change that just to kind of reflect that. So we said 26 hours. So we're going to do 22 hours here because we had 4 hours on the other page. And you'll see now that it's not highlighting red because we're at 80/20 because we're at the 26 hours. But let's go ahead and go through the example of what we had and see what you do if you have a member that's over the hour percentage, right? So the max allowable hours is 26. Now, early exit completion check. So we were just talking about exiting this member and what they'd be available for. So they've completed 35.1% of their hours, which means they're not eligible to be exited for employment. However, they've completed over 15% of their hours, so they are eligible to be exited for personal and compelling circumstances, which is what we're doing. So this is important because it just gives you a sense of, okay, can I exit them for employment? Can I exit them for personal and compelling? What are my options here? Okay, so we selected all of that. But we have to deal with this hour issue, right? There's more training hours on their timesheet or hour log than we want to count. So we're going to use the training hour memo. So the training hour memo is basically a blanket statement that you would put in the member file that acknowledges that you understand that there's some hours that are on the hour log that you're not actually counting towards their total because they're over the 20% rule. So this, again, is autofilled based on the information that we've had put in previously. So it has the member name, again, this is the maximum training hours. So their actual training hours are 54, but their maximum training hours are 26. So it's only counting 26 training hours. And it's counting all the service hours because there's no cap on service hours, and that gives you the total hours of 130 hours. So this 130 is what you should be putting into eGrants and DYB when you're exiting the member, because this is the official record of what you're counting. So I put in my name as the official earlier, and again, we're in the future, so we're using this date, and then we're going to go ahead and sign off on it. So all of these things combined, you don't go back and have to edit your hour logs, right? So you're still leaving this 50 in here, but you're providing a training memo. So if anybody is reviewing these files, they have an understanding, okay, training hours were overcounted, and we're only counting this many upon exit. So this is something that should be clear to the member, and really you're documenting it for the file. So you don't go back and edit previous hour logs. You're just printing off this memo and putting the correct amount of hours into eGrants, which is really important. So it's really important when you go into eGrants that you put in the correct hours of what is displayed here, which in this case is 130. So that's the training hour memo. So other things that you can use this tool for, this is entirely optional, but here's a certificate that you can print off. From here, I was really proud of myself for getting the watermarked AmeriCorps logo on the background there. So you can print this off, and again, it shows the total hours served and the estimated prorated education award based on those hours served. So this is based on the slot type and the education award amount for the year in question, which is this, in this case, 1920. So, again, this is optional, but it's something that you can give to members so they have a record of it. And a sense, so this is not an exact number. So I will say this is an estimate. Anytime it's a partial award, it's going to be an estimate. If it's a full award, then it would not be. So, so let's run through a couple different scenarios just so that we kind of get through everything. So I'm going to go ahead and give him 300 hours on Monday. Again, not humanly possible, but I just wanted to get him over 450. So now we're going to go back to the exit helper. So we see our member with their hours. Now we're going to switch from partial award to full award because they're above 450, which is a slot type for quarter time. Again, so all of these track out. So now we're not over 20%. So in the scenario where you're not over 20%, you don't need to use the training hour memo at all. Because these hours are just the same hours that are on the hour log. You only use the training hour memo when there's a discrepancy between what's on the hour logs and what you're actually putting into the exit. So completion check, so it tells you that this member is 101.8% complete, so they are in fact over 450 hours, which also default means that they've met the threshold for exit for employment or exit from personal and compelling. But again, because they completed their hours, you don't have to do either of those things. So then the only other thing you would need to do in this scenario is, if you would like, you can print off this page right here, which will show the award amount, and this is the actual amount because it's a full award, so this is not estimated. So just the important thing to note here is if you are using that print off certificate, if you selected partial award here, that changes how the calculations work. So now this is wrong because it's calculating it based on 458 hours. So it's actually giving them more money than they would get because it's doing a different calculation. So, again, if you're doing, just make sure you're selecting this properly. So now that is the correct amount for the education award. All right, so let's run through another scenario. We're going to go ahead and go back and get rid of these 300 hours. And so now we're going to say that in this timeline, we're going on a separate timeline, that Calvin Stormbless did not take an arrow to the knee, and so he is not eligible for a partial award. So we're going to go ahead and delete the successful exit information. We're going to go ahead and go into unsuccessful exit information, and we're going to say it was a voluntary withdrawal. Do voluntary withdrawal, and we're just going to type in a reason here, just saying he wasn't feeling it. He just decided he wanted to move on. So, with all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and keep on going. So this is a voluntary withdrawal. They are not getting an award, but even though they're not receiving an award, we still need to worry about the 20% at exit. So in this scenario, we change the hours back. So he's at that 66 service, 34 training, max allowable is 26. So that means that we do need to do a training hour memo for this member. So even though they're not exiting with an award, we still want to make sure that we are properly counting the 20% rule. So this member, with their unsuccessful exit, would also get a training hour memo because we're discounting some of the hours. Now you can get around this if you want to change what's in the hour log. The thing about changing the hour log is if you do change the hour log, you do need the member to sign off on any changes. So that's why sometimes the training hour memo can be easier. So this member is exiting without an award, so we have this option here where this member is exiting without an award, so that we put this in this category. We're just verifying what happened, and we'll go ahead and put this off in the file. So this is really record keeping. Can see, why was this member exited? So if they look at this member's file, they can go back and see what happened. So let's just go ahead and run through the last scenario. We're going to change this from voluntary withdrawal to released. So released, we're going to say he violated the code of conduct. So in an actual scenario, you'd probably want to put a little bit more, but so this is a scenario where you're letting the member go from the program. None of the hour situation changed, so you still need to do a training hour memo for the situation. And then on the exit for reward piece, you'll notice that it's switched now to where it's released from the program, and there's a little note here, so you can print that off and sign it. So that's really the member hour log. Those are the different ways you can use it. So if you have any questions about it, please reach out to your portfolio manager. We'd be happy to help clarify things. But hopefully this was helpful and useful for you to gain an understanding of how to track member hours. And hopefully this tool can help you in that endeavor. So whenever you're watching this, I hope you're having a good day. And like I said, if you have any other questions, please follow up with us.